1,000 all-wheel horsepower is not really a bottleneck. That's a lot of power, but there's a lot more on tap. And so we've got a couple things that we're gonna do to make even more power.
You need to do the Billy Mays, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more at the same amount of boost pressure. Intercooler looks just like what we were originally intending, but it functions a little bit different. It peed all over you. As soon as I connected that intercooler pipe into the intake manifold, this thing started running differently. Naturally aspirated ran beautifully. It revved quickly, but under 3,000 RPM, as soon as we plug in the intercooler and, well, technically the turbo, things started acting up. It wasn't until I ran a fluid dynamics mod. It wasn't until I ran a fluid simulation module. Rob, stop adding words. It wasn't until I ran a fluid dynamics simulation where I found that there were a couple bottlenecks in this design. I did originally design this to have an inlet here, go through the side, go straight through, tank on this side, and then out that way. You see it starts out at this 4-inch, goes down to 3.5 as it needed to do, and then hits this little rectangle area here. It slams against all of these walls and then goes up, and then goes over into this area right here, going all the way through this area, through the core, going down to here, and then right about here goes back up through and repeats the process. That led me to doing this. As you guys know, I love CAD and I love mocking things up to make sure that they fit and all that, but here we take it a step further. This program allows you to simulate airflow, velocity, all those sort of things through systems that you make. I've already ran the results, and this is fascinating. What you see here is the flow of air through this thing given about 1,000 rear wheel horsepower. Not 1,000 all wheel horsepower, that's a little bit more airflow. You can see that the air comes in all consistently uniform, and then it hits this first corner right up here, and spaghettis on over down to the first part of the intercooler. It looks okay. The colors signify the speed at which it's moving until you get to this side, and it kind of makes sense, is that as it goes to the outer edge of this little constriction right here, it speeds up. The crazy part is this thing speeds up to more than double the original speed, meaning that there is quite a restriction right here. The air flows through, goes up through this corner, and then goes and is distributed through most of the first part of the core. Air has mass, and of course the outer part of this is where the air wants to go through the most. This is where we find another smoking gun. This is the bottom of the intercooler, the bottom tank, and you can see that it is not large enough for the volume of air at that sort of horsepower. Air has to speed up to get through this sort of surface area. When you're making these sort of models, you're actually making them based on velocity, not just pressure. This tube, which in this case is a 3.5-inch diameter tube, can only flow so much air through it until velocity has to increase. So there's a relationship between the surface area, the speed, and the pressure. And that's the cool relationship that we're finding out here, is that as volume decreases, speed has to increase to get the same amount of air through it. Of course, in these intercooler core in the tank itself, you can see that it actually slows down because there's so much more opportunity for the air to take different channels. It's not until you get to these restrictions right here that it has to speed up to get all of that airflow through that section. You see 1, 2, and 3 major restrictions on this design. When we went to pick up the Corvette, it's very hard to hide the fact that I'm not at the shop. We were doing a massive cross-country road trip, but you know what was really nice? What gave me the peace of mind to do that and to still share my adventures with the public? It was my Simply Safe security system here at the shop. I had the opportunity while I was halfway through Texas driving to get a notification from the Simply Safe system that there was motion detected in the shop. There's motion detectors and there's cameras, and when the motion detector went off, the cameras fired off and recorded. And I saw a massive bug flying in front of the screen. So it triggered and it let me know that I was safe from Godzilla. It was a perfect example of how quick it was from something occurring, an event occurring in the shop, and me not being here to know that I was safe. This is actually probably the most stylish looking thing in the shop, but it's so easy to look at. Any sort of updates, backdoor entry is open. Oh, easy enough. This is the door handle I have at home. nice and straightforward, locks and unlocks from the inside, and then you have a nice little keypad from the outside. But you can unlock it from the app too. So if you have a friend coming over or somebody that you don't really want to give a code to, even if it's temporarily, all part of the Simply Safe security system. Very comprehensive, and it's made my life much easier because I've had a variety of issues in the past that have concerned me, people being arrested in the parking lot and whatnot. My little domain is safe. If you're interested in learning more about the different solutions available, go to simplysafe.com/RobDahm to find out more. That is simplysafe.com/RobDahm. This is pressure difference. So as soon as you see this come through the system, the red over on this bottom part right here is about 11 psi. So it goes from 11 psi all the way to the top tank here, and that gets down to about 7.5. So it's simply from going from here to here at this airflow, we lose 3 psi of pressure. Going through the tank flows through perfectly fine, stays consistent color the whole way, and it's not until you get to the bottom tank where you see the pressure drop again. It goes from approximately 6.5 over to about 4.5, another 3 to 4 psi drop. And then of course it goes through the second pass on the tank, and again, not a major pressure drop. The tank is properly sized for this airflow, but it's the end tank up here that gets us one more time. We go from approximately 4.5 down to about 2, 1.5, another 3 psi drop, for a total pressure drop of about 10 to 11 psi. A normal intercooler, for reference, should only drop about 1 to 2. Let's take a look at our proposed design. We do have a solution for that, and that is right here. This is Garrett's largest core they make for an intercooler on a piston engine, and we'll find out on a rotary, but on a piston engine this is rated for like 1300 horsepower. Ideal. It can flow much more and it can flow much less, but that is its ideal flow rate. It's slightly taller than we want it to be. Before we do any sort of cutting or modifying and taking rows off, what I want to do is measure the surface area of each of these rows. I'm not worried about the actual surface area of the small teeth or the fins. What I'm worried about is total surface area. Does this equal a 4-inch circle in diameter? The area of this equal the area of that. If that's the case, if we start taking these off and we make it even smaller, we're going to cut this off. If this already exceeds the 4-inch diameter, we can cut a row off. Taking off one flowable roll. You got me, say it. One flowable roll. One flowable roll. Wow, I can't do it. One flowable roll. Wow. One flowable row. Wow, okay, that's a tongue twister. Of air this way takes off 2 total rows this way. So that would shrink it enough to get the whole thing down and then pulled forward.
It's sharp. Well, I'll tell you exactly how far it has to be because this guy has to be.
Yeah. It's a good amount of space for the end tanks. I was worried. It's not perfect, but it's definitely ideal. Isaiah already cut this while I was working on the C8. And it looks basically brand new. You guys with sharp eyes notice this was a miscommunication between Isaiah and I. What I meant and what I said were 2 totally different things, and so he started taking some of those off. We're leaving it though. You know, beauty mark. Isaiah, show me what you got.
Paper.
I don't think that's gonna hold the pressure.
This length right here, this is 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches on the other side, but we have a 4-inch inlet, so we have to make up another 1/2 inch that she always asks me for, but I can never.
Nothing else.
So this square over here is 4.5 by 4.5. I'm actually gonna have, like maybe a 15 degree or maybe a 30 degree bend like that, so that way when it comes in, kind of dispenses the air more evenly, because if it just comes straight in through here, it's just gonna grab these couple rows. So if I go down a little bit, it'll come in and, you know, disperse that air.
Because we got to work around, that's our key issue.
It's not going to stay hard forever, dude. This is 4-inch tube. It's accurate.
Right.
This is actually your idea. This is actually, you know,
Thank you.
Rob could fabricate.
I can offer ideas.
This is 3.5 inches, so we can't have 4-inch come in like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. So Rob had the idea to oval this and have circle on one side, so that way it could come in and disperse air better, and also keep the circular pattern so we could open it up to the vibrant clamps. It's gonna be tough, not gonna lie. Everything in here is actually just really tight. Never had anything this tight before, but just kidding. Don't put that. I will get in trouble. She's like, "Oh, so you're lying to me?" I'm like, "You see, hang on." She don't watch the videos.
We ran the numbers, and I wanted to show you guys. If you look at the surface area of a 4-inch circle, this ends up being roughly, actually, you know, even though it's a triangle here, it's roughly half of that. What that means to me is that half of the air from the center can travel up and half can travel down without reducing the size. So our goal when we wedge this in is to get as close to the middle as possible, not perfectly, but that allows us to disperse the air thoroughly.
I'm gonna do this down to 3-inch, then it should compress back up to maybe 3.25, hopefully. That's ideal. Cut in the middle. This will be circular. This will be circular. It will be good from there. For our 3-rotor, we're gonna have a 1-row core. No, we see it for the 1-rotor.
We use everything.
So our proposed intercooler shows you some really fascinating things right off the bat. Very first thing is obviously the weird squiggles on the corners of these end tanks. Specifically on the inlet side, you can see the air does bounce around. So I want to address that first because that really is an issue that could be a continuous improvement as you go to make these intercoolers even better. I just wanted to face the facts. Both of these could be clipped on the top and bottom corner. This is 1,000 rear wheel horsepower for this Mazda RX-7, this 4-rotor. And what you see is velocity. This is the speed of the air as it goes through there. And the important part to me was to make sure that the airspeed, which is this kind of yellowish, orangish color, does not slow down too much through the core of this intercooler, because that would then, of course, affect response. You can see that the bottom half of the intercooler does have the bluer, darker lines, which does mean that the air is not moving as fast through there. Not the biggest deal, but it does show you that this intercooler is larger than is necessary for this amount of horsepower, which is great, because guess what? We're going for way more. The other very interesting thing is look at the intercooler from the top. Again, inlet is on the right side. You can see that the air speed, the air velocity that's coming into this system is fascinating enough that it creates really a pocket of air, a pocket right there. That also means that, again, that there's more fins, there's more space for air to go into this intercooler. So we're not remotely close to making this as optimal as possible. On the front side of the intercooler, the air hugs the outer edge, meaning that, of course, that side's going to get more efficient at cooling the charge air. The other thing I want to address is the fact that, yes, based on limitations to the car itself, we're unable to evenly spread the air throughout this entire core. It will, of course, accommodate for that as we go to add more air through this tube. Of course, it'll find the weakest link and continue to fill in down here. And I would suspect we would see a weak link right here if we were going for an even more insane amount of power. You're seeing a total pressure drop of almost next to nothing. Let's go ahead and look at the pressure drop on our new intercooler. There is our pressure drop, black and white, or light blue, dark blue. You can see the inlet pressure is close to about 1 psi, and the outlet pressure is close to 0. It's going to be a difference in pressure between the two. Let's see more of the picture. As we go into the intercooler, you can still see that, man, that thing is super efficient. One of my favorite things is this transition, and you can see it opening up. Does not restrict whatsoever. And in fact, when you do the calculations, it's slightly larger, so it does open up and then go through the core. Something I think that's very interesting to me is as the air goes in, and I'm going towards the front of the intercooler, you can see that velocity really speeds up down on the bottom right-hand corner of the intercooler. And that, I suspect, would be an area of a limitation if we were to go for 3,000 horsepower, something absolutely insane. You can see the air is prioritizing going along that. You can see it traveling the yellow section as we go towards the front of the intercooler. There it is. Oh, hold up. There was like a mix of emotions. I was like, what the? Okay, so there it is. God, that is just.
I'm a big boy too, so like.
Yeah, this is no joke. God, it looks like almost like a diesel truck intercooler. It doesn't look like a car.
There's a decent transition in there too.
Whoa!
David did pay me $1,000, so I have to put metal shavings in here.
So similar, but so different. We were afraid that going single pass would reduce the amount of core, but that's not even the case. Look at all of the blocks that you can go through. It ends up being about 30 to 35 square inches. So you're coming in at 12, and you have 30 square inches to go through. As I wanted to clarify, what I'm talking about is 4 inches in internal diameter, roughly. Your calculation to find surface area is pi r squared, this being 2 inch radius. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times pi is just over 12 total. So our goal was to maintain that 12 square inches minimum throughout the whole thing.
It just nobody's fault. It's just at these horsepower levels, every little detail matters.
Right. So here comes the moment we're waiting for. We have that beautiful, beautiful front-mounted intercooler all set up, firing up the laptop. Got the C8 sitting out there. It makes a statement. What we're looking for is throttle response. We're looking for just the ability for the car to just feel. I'm looking for the map to be wrong is really, I think, what my biggest thing is. I'm hoping this thing acts weird. I'm hoping the car is pissed off because we now have way more restriction removed. I'm just excited. I don't know what to expect. We should see some cool shit. I'll go ahead and turn on the fuel pumps. Here we go. Loving the throttle response.
It sounds really good. When you start it up, you could kind of feel it in the. Did you feel like a little harder
pulsing? Yeah. But definitely more.
Yeah, you could feel like a stronger engine.
Yeah.
Just the vibration in the car.
I'm gonna warm it all the way up, and so that way we can really test it. Mm-hmm. But I just wanted to. First reaction is just. Yeah. She's doing something odd. Ooh.
Much, but I hope this turbo just sounds sick right now.
This one is fascinating. I have pulled about 25 to almost about now 30% of the fuel out of the non-boost areas. This thing is a totally different car, and we're sitting here, reviewing logs, understanding just what animal we have, because oh my god, the throttle response is just woof, woof, woof. The transient throttle, the fuel maps, everything changes now. So we have a totally different car. We have to tune it from scratch again. That's perfectly okay by me. I just took anything that's in vacuum and just straight up subtracted 25% out of it. So the map looks weird. I'm gonna leave all that rich because that should be, we don't need to test that. So we're gonna go ahead and do some free revving and see if this thing responds better. But I guarantee we're fouling plugs while we're doing this. So much fuel out, but when I revved it that one time, super lean. Before, we had it where the map was accommodating for everything, shit response, but it always had tons more fuel. Now the map, the car idles way lower. That fuel that was there to compensate for that is no longer there. So when I was stabbed it just to test it, it went super lean. Instead of them both being kind of neutral with the amount of fuel, idling goes way low on fuel, and the throttle response is going to go way high. We've got a lot of work cut out for us, but there's nothing at this point stopping this car. We're going to work back on retuning this and hitting the dyno. That might be all one video. I'm not sure how crazy this can get. We need to replace plugs, change oil, and then we're going back to the dyno to take the power back that we deserve.
I paid for horsepower. I'm going to use the horsepower.
That's right.